Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate, leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on NLL Lacrosse Talk, our co-host Gary Groob and our very special guest, Larry Lloyd. Larry, how you doing today?
I'm doing great.
So the big question we always ask, it's traditional, and the question is, how did lacrosse enter your life and why?
It was truly accidental. I was 15 years old, playing high school basketball, and we had a very good team. And on that team, for example, was Charlie Marlowe, Joe Krasny, Bill Langley. And Bishop, of course, heard about us as athletes playing basketball, thought that the connection was too close to lacrosse, that he needed to come to practice and talk to us about considering lacrosse. Came to practice. He said, this sounds fun. First year, it was just beginning of spring. He organized. I played on 4 teams the first year I played lacrosse. I played for a midget team in the house league because that's all they had. I played for the midget all-stars. I played for a juvenile team in the house league, and I played for the juvenile all-stars. The next year I made the Gales.
Wow. And what's kept you in it?
I wish I could say it's that I've stayed in it at the level that I wished I had, but it's the people that I met and the connections and the relationships that I formed that were the difference maker, and as it is in life. And it's the reason that I really hang out in that community is because of the people.
Yeah, our friend Gary there, who's with us right there, is very into music, and he's very into choir-like behavior. And I think we could hit record for everybody that's been on the show and then hit play, and it would be like a choir, Gary, like the same words, the same lyrics, the same pitch, the same tone, all that stuff. Larry, it's amazing how once you get bitten by the lacrosse bug, how it really, and I'm not going to use the word infects because that sounds negative, but it explores the inside of not only of your mind, but it explores your heart and the rest of you in a way that I don't think many sports can claim.
I would agree with that. And I think that, it's caused by the constant battle, with hockey and or basketball and or anything, to gain the recognition, at that level. And I think, we really feel that, it is something so special, and that more people need to see it, experience it. And as a result, we're left feeling that we need to be disciples for the sport forever because of that.
Absolutely.
So that is so true. Many a time have I gone out there even with my phone just to show people the game, and then, put it in a bar and just to see people look over the shoulder, just, get the word spread around. I want to get to the earlier days of you talked about Jim Bishop, of course. Talk about your initial meeting with him, and then you're going into the Gales and playing for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Gales came to Oshawa with not a single soul from Oshawa on the team to start with, and they needed to recruit guys to fill out the talent they had, and they had some amazing talent. The Huntsville guys made up the bulk of that talent, but initially. Johnny came in the second year, Johnny Davis, and it was, I think through my eyes, I'm playing my second year lacrosse, and I'm on a lacrosse floor with Johnny Davis, and I'm thinking, geez, Donnie, don't throw me the ball. I'm probably going to drop it. Yeah, and it was one of those situations. There was so much talent that I was surrounded by. I was intimidated by it, but the learning curve was exponential. It was amazing what I had the opportunity to learn from just being in the presence of such talent. but there was no question about it. I was a third line super utility guy.
Right. Right. It's funny, because I see Johnny Davis all the time when I head up to Peterborough and talk to him about the old days. And we've had him on the show as well, and him talking about Miller Bowl and some of the other things. And the Gales come up as well. And, the who's who that came through the Gales organization between him, Gaylord Palace along the way, yourself, number of other people, a huge list. It's just amazing of the who's who. But in your time there, you won 4 Minto Cups with them.
Yes.
That's pretty impressive as well.
Yes.
Let's talk about, do you have a favorite one of those?
The last, it's really interesting. You can never replace the first one. That happening the first time, it's irreplaceable. By the last one, I'm making a major contribution, and it was different.
Right.
In the first one, I'm in the team picture. In the last one, my jersey has not got anything on it, but nothing but sweat.
Right. Right. So watch you grow with the team. That's something very important.
Yes. Grow as a person and as a lacrosse player,
Now, I've heard all kinds of things about Jim Bishop. I've heard great things. I've heard demanding things. What was your take playing for him?
One of those things when you're 16 years old and you're seeing a man like that in operating as he does, it's very intimidating. And I never had I had a really great high school basketball coach. And so Jim Bishop was really the second really good coach I had, and he was so different. And I didn't really appreciate, what he was all about. I was in survival mode to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, as I had a chance to grow in that and sit in that and see how advantageous it was to be in his presence, because I had no comparative.
Right.
Just to extrapolate that once again, then I go to Philadelphia and I have Bobby Allen. If there is anybody that,
Mm-hmm.
that's had any better coaching than I've had, I'd like to know who it is. It's phenomenal who I've been put in front of, either accidentally or by chance.
Right. And you're also a walking proof about lacrosse community, because you've had many, business dealings with Jim Bishop and business associations. Carm Collins is another one that comes to mind, that you've had a lot of business dealings outside of lacrosse as well as inside of lacrosse. So it just shows you the tight-knit community that lacrosse is. And although it ranges and more tentacles and more wide range now, it's still that tight-knit community, because whenever there's a problem, everybody gets together.
It's a bond, and really it's unbreakable. It's no different than the guys I sometimes meet for coffee locally at in the Oshawa area.
Mm-hmm.
And the bond is it's hard to describe, but I think in simplest words for me, it's like those guys would have your back at any time, anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at that level that you just don't find that in life.
Yeah.
You can search along, and really it's not one, it's not two, it's 10, 12, just a phone call, they would be there.
Right.
And that's just who they are as people and how they respect the bond that you created together.
Right. Now, we're going to jump a little bit further up into your senior A career, and of course the MSL thing, working on playing for Brooklyn, also playing for Windsor. Let's talk about that, because boy, oh boy, the amount of points that you had in not a lot of games was really quite astounding. But I also wanted to hit on what's different about the game there then and now, and why are we having so many problems drawing people to this? Because I love summer ball. I love it more than winter ball.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it's set up, and it's a much rougher, much more physical game. And I don't see why this doesn't draw people by the droves to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the question you've asked is fairly loaded, because there's a couple of things inside of it that I think will bring context to what you're interested in. Mm-hmm. So first of all, the Windsor thing, I'm in Oshawa. There's 3 or 4 of us on any given weekend. driving to Windsor Friday afternoon, practicing Friday night, practicing midday Saturday, playing Saturday night, practicing Sunday morning, driving home. And playing in a rink that was, could be 100 degrees on any given night in Windsor with the humidity.
Mm-hmm.
So the commitment was huge.
Right.
And the sacrifice was huge. And I really think that, that in itself, I think it stands alone as to what lacrosse at that time in history was. I mean, Bishop brought us in, and I respected him at such a level that I committed to that. And really, you can imagine when you're a 21, 22-year-old guy, I mean, taking your weekend and devoting it to that is not easy. There's a lot of distractions. So, I mean, I think that first of all, the commitment to that, the style of the game and the toughness of the game, and like whether it's playing both ends of the floor, whether it's playing with a wooden stick, whether it's playing in the humidity, whether it's playing for virtually nothing, sets you apart.
Yeah.
It's not it's not the same mindset, the same mentality. It's something that I don't think many people would ever have a chance to experience in their life. That level of being committed to team at that level.
Right. Now those teams were stacked. Almost all the teams in the league were stacked. The players were phenomenal. Talk about just getting in and playing in these situations with your teammates and that during those years.
Yeah, I think it's the same everywhere though. The level of competition has a huge impact on what you rise to, what you learn, what's new, what you want to take on, what you need, where you need to develop to make it really happen, and the development of the game then, and what people were doing, how they were. The simplicity of how they were passing, how they were catching, what it was like in traffic, what it was like with heavy hitting, and the game was really developing, and people's individual skills were really developing. And with that level of talent that was in the league, it caused you, to really, I think, tenfold what you would normally get, in a short lacrosse era. And
Right.
I mean, it was pretty amazing to be part of that. And it is difficult to compare to today. The athletes today are every bit as good and or better than athletes of that time. They have all the opportunity. I just think the difference of all of this conversation is the kind of person, and why you responded to that environment, that sets you apart. Like, I mean, I remember, whether it was Groucho McNeil or, some of the Paul Suggett, like these guys were amazing athletes, and finding a way to stop them, finding a way to emulate them was really amazing. Playing with people like Gaylord and Johnny and trying to figure out what piece of that is available to me.
Right.
You can't find that in life. You don't find those people to hang out with, because
Right.
as you know, who you hang out with in life is a difference maker.
Absolutely.
And getting the opportunity to hang out with those people as either opposition and or teammates was amazing.
Right. Now it's funny because you brought up an interesting thing there of that the in shape of guys. I think that you guys were much more than what we have now because of the two-way game. We had Dave Durante on. We've had Rich Darris Kilgore on talking about it as well. In fact, Rich brought it back in the Man Cup this year, playing Lions for Six Nations instead of offense go, defense come off, defense go, offense come off, and actually do the two-way game. And it became the quickest game on 2 feet again. Dave Durante was adamant about that's the one thing that's really lacking in our game now, because we do have specialty players and things slow up and halt and, come to a screeching grind. And, back then it was just, and I think that's a lot of the hook as well of what made it so special to watch, let alone play.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I think there's a little more inside of it. Like, I mean, one of the great things, I think about lacrosse, and I mean, hockey's a good comparative here, that playing both offense and defense. I mean, what happens on offense is reflected on defense. I mean, something happens to you on offense and that guy comes back. Retribution is immediate.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go off the floor and hope somebody else fills in for you. Right. You do it yourself. The intensity in that is not available in today's game.
Right.
And it's not available because of, how they play it. I'm not saying the skill is not there. Like, the skill is there, but it is that human element. Like, it's why is playoff lacrosse and or playoff hockey the best that you see all year? It raises the level, of what you're up to there and what's on the line. And the conditioning part. I mean, if you're running full length of the floor, playing offense and defense, you have to be in shape. There's no other options for you. I mean, it's just demanding, and it's not like hockey where you can glide.
Yeah.
Every step, is energy. So it causes you to just be in phenomenal shape.
Right. Shooter used to joke that he would take a penalty just so he could actually sit down for 2 minutes because he'd never be off the floor.
Or fake an injury just before sprints at the end, or because I mean there was times in our game that we used to show up for practice, and before practice started, we had to run 5 miles with a brick in our stick. Fish got that from Lloyd Percival, and he thought that was the best thing he'd ever heard.
Wow! And
try running 5 miles with a brick in your stick.
We'll go with try running 5 miles. Then we'll get sick of brick.
My brain is moving a mile a minute thinking of the name Lloyd Percival.
You'd have to be of a certain vintage, I think, to.
No kidding.
Yeah, I mean, he was accepted by the Russians and not Canadians.
Yeah, more than yeah.
Because of his ways and his methods.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to go into a bit of the professional lacrosse. And I'm going to start over with Detroit and the Olympians in the NLA, I guess 1968-ish. And I guess Bishop come and got you again because he knew what he had with you, and away we went.
Well, it's a lot simpler than that, Gary, because we used to practice with the Gales from 6 to 8.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit would practice from 8 to 10. And guys like myself who were playing at that time, and it was 60, 69, and we were capable, everything that the guys on that team were. So we would practice with them to get to play with them and make $100 a game. And I mean, it was phenomenal. Still being junior, we were leading that team. Like every game there'd be 4 or 5 Gales play. We'd form a line. We were driving that team, and it was just amazing. First of all, the level of shape that we were in,
mm-hmm.
the amount of lacrosse we were playing and trying to stay injury free, and the guys we were hanging out with that we never got to hang out with, like Bruce Wanless, Castater. I mean, there was Bob Hanna. There were these guys were older than us,
right.
And we were thrown right into the mix with the talent of the ages. And again, I go back to you can't imagine the learning curve playing with those guys as a junior.
Right.
It was phenomenal.
Right. And the league only lasted a year because, of course, financial got in the way with it. It did jettison Jim Bishop into the Detroit Red Wings.
Right.
So, yeah, he gained big out of that one. But
he did.
But
do you know how that happened?
No, I don't actually.
Let me tell you. So we come into Detroit for a game, and lots of times we'd arrive there in the afternoon so we could practice before the game. Gordie Howe is in the building. He's in the Olympia. He sees us on game day and the practice that's going on. It's hot in the Olympia. And he could not believe the intensity of a game day practice. He goes to Detroit and said, listen, I just watched these lacrosse guys. I don't know who the coach is, but he must be something special to get men to do this. They started talking to Bish, started hanging out, listening to him, and they thought they needed him in hockey.
Amazing.
And guess what? Hockey was not ready for him.
I can see that. I can see that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, like they were just a little too complacent, just a little bit too tied for traditions, and he was early, no different than Percival. Percival was too early for Canadians.
Right.
And it was the same thing. And really, he didn't really succeed, not because he was any less in hockey. It was they were not ready for him.
Right. Because back then, of course, you used training camps to get in shape. You didn't come in top form like it is now. And can you imagine now? He would come in there. He would have them homed like a sewing machine.
Yeah. By the way, Gary, you don't use training camps to get in shape. If you didn't show up in shape, you were going to pay so dearly that you better be in shape before you arrived.
Right.
That's the difference between hockey and lacrosse.
Right there.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Going back, hockey players used to we all know the stories about Guy Lafleur smoking between periods.
Yes.
That kind of thing. And we do know also 72 was the experience of NHL players finding out that people actually train out of season.
Yeah, that was a turning point there.
But lacrosse has always been, because of the way it's played. And I think it has a lot to do with I'm like, this is me a passenger because I have not played, not really. The kind of commitment you got to make to be a lacrosse player. We've talked about a few of the things here, Larry, where we have the commitment because it's a sport that if you love it, it's like almost an obligation to be a part of it and to not stop. I didn't ask you this before because I wanted Gary to get in, but part of the reason I'm going to ask you that you're so dedicated to this game is because you feel somewhere down deep that it needs you. And I think that's something that other sports don't have.
Mm-hmm. I think, Franco, one of the things that you're talking about here, the only other sport I can think of that I've played that has any similarity is rugby. And, the boys, you go on the rugby pitch and the boys play hard and they hit one another hard. And when the game's over, they shake hands, have a beer, and call it a day. And that camaraderie, or that sense of sportsmanship, or that respect,
there it is,
that comes for the other man, you don't find in life and in sport that much.
Right. And there is a definite sense of community when it comes to lacrosse. I can't speak for rugby, but I do know it exists, and there's a sense of community. And there's also that extra little tangible, it's referred to as the maker's game. So it has a historical value that a lot of sports don't have. This goes back, before the people before us were walking this land.
Yes. As you know, in the maker's game, the odd guy would die,
yes,
as a result of the sport. And I'm
happy to hear about that.
But it's kind of at that level, at that, that culture, and or from a religious perspective, that level of spirituality that's available, in the sport because of what it is and who plays it is pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah. If it was a product, any one of the ingredients that makes lacrosse would make it special. Mm-hmm. But the amazing combination of what it reaches out and where it pulls from always amazes me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, lacrosse is the vehicle. The people that play it and the relationships that's formed in it is the difference maker.
Yeah, I agree. Now I want to get into a bit of the NLL, the first kick around there in 74, 75. And very few people know this, is that your first game with Philadelphia was the same day the Philadelphia Flyers won their first Stanley Cup in the afternoon. You guys played in the evening. They pulled everybody out. They cleaned it up. They put the floor down, and away we went. And everybody was partying and celebrating. And you got a pretty good crowd of guys who wanted to take a look and see this aggressive lacrosse thing. And, well, the rest, as they say, is history in the city of Philadelphia. Talk about just getting into Philadelphia. Was the city what you had thought it would be?
Okay, so this is an experience that I had on the ground with my own eyes. So, this is the country kids from Peterborough and Oshawa that land in Philadelphia, during an event that would change the city forever.
Yeah.
And the ironical part that it was on that same day, and we arrive at the rink, and the game is just about to end. Most of us had watched some of it on the TV. We get to the Spectrum, and the victory has been had, and people are absolutely going crazy for what's just happened to Philadelphia. I can remember people sitting on the roofs and standing on the out convertibles of cars, stark naked, celebrating. It was just, they didn't know how to deal with it. So the building has to empty before we can get in. And one of the problems was that Boston, who they were playing, they're dejected and they're not moving out of the room. That's the room that we're using. That's our home room. That was the visitors' dressing room was our home room, because the Flyers had their dressing. It was prohibited. Sure. And so the Bruins are not leaving the room. They had to get security guards to get them out.
Wow.
And guys like Esposito and that were, they were there smoking cigars, trying to get over what just happened to them. And these lacrosse guys are coming in, and it's like, it was like a scene, a surreal scene. You can still feel the energy in the building. You can still feel the sweat. You can feel the humidity. You can feel the intensity. And the place was packed. They papered a lot of it, but the place was packed. Right. And people were, because Gene Hart, who was the announcer for the Flyers, also was the announcer. And Gene had said this is hockey on steroids. You must see it. And people showed up just to see, the WWF or they thought that's what was available.
Right.
I can tell you that the intensity of that game, that I guess it was the feeling to perform and give them what they came for. I don't think they came to see Larry Lloyd get a breakaway pass and put it in the top corner. I think they came to see an absolute mayhem.
Right.
And guys delivered on that. I don't know if in the first week of that league, 7 wrists were broken with slashing. I mean, it was loud. It was intense. It was, extraordinarily rough.
Right.
And that's what they were selling in the States. That's what they were selling. That's because they didn't box lacrosse. It meant nothing to them, And so it was an interesting piece to be a part of, really an interesting piece to be a part of, and an interesting reaction by fans and having them understand what just was going on the floor, And they were amazed at the skill level, but there was still, they came to see, man, they couldn't wait for a fight.
Oh, yeah. I can
Couldn't
see
wait. I mean, it had to happen right away. It was so important because of how it was delivered to them.
Right. Right.
So it was an interesting time, and to be part of that, you couldn't recreate that if you tried.
Right. It's funny because I had a number of your teammates on. I've had John Grant Sr. I've had Jimmy Wasson on. I had the owner at Tepper on as well. Jimmy Wasson, he brought up a very good point of everything that they're striving for now. You guys had. You had full time. You had playing in the greatest arenas around. You had the Spectrum. You had Maple Leaf Gardens. You had the Nassau County Coliseum. You had the Olympia or Joe Louis to play with him. You had all these great barns to play in and all the historical things. You had the crowds. They were paying you. You were playing 40 games a year or more. Everything they're striving for now. And you guys had it. Actually, John Grant Sr., he put it like this: when the league closed down, it was like winning the lottery and then losing the ticket.
Yeah.
Like, that was profound. That was exactly nailed what it was all about. What's your take on those couple of years in there?
Yes. And so, I mean, first of all, it's a legitimate schedule. I think there was 42 games.
Mm-hmm.
There's a legitimate schedule with legitimate rivalries that didn't just happen on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that, what was available then was everything that they're striving for. But once again, it was too early for the American pocketbook. And really, the league could have been saved. I mean, the ownership of Philadelphia was willing to buy Boston. Mm-hmm. But they didn't want to get into that, one owner, two team circus.
Right.
And they didn't see the fallout of it. Because, I mean, in these different centers with different owners, like, everybody wanted to come and play in Philadelphia. Why is that? Is because we had it. Right. We had the excitement. We had ownership. We had crowds. It was like, it wasn't the same to go to Maryland, which is a lacrosse hotbed for field lacrosse. Right. They just were not able to piggyback on the Flyers and or create excitement from nothing. And that early adoption of the game was so important, and really Jim Bishop and Morley wanted nothing more. Like, those guys gave everything they had to make this work. Right. And they didn't have the perfect formula. They were just selling a game that they loved. Right. And really, it was not easy for other people to sometimes get that love, get that understanding, and to give it an opportunity. But I mean, it laid the groundwork. It just, did not have the staying power.
Right. I have a lot of the swag from the league, and one of the things you brought up, the Boston Bolts, and I happen to have.
Oh my goodness! Yes, fast as lightning.
I have one of their programs around here in my collection here as well. But just stuff from the league that I was able to accumulate over the years, which is great. Now, you guys were the first ones to lay down turf that we see now. And yes. There's an interesting story that Ed Tepper came up with. Actually, was found here in Toronto, because him and Ed Snyder came up here to watch indoor soccer. And he saw the turf down there for that and thought, hey, that'd be great. That would be eye-catching. Next thing you know, it is down in Philadelphia. And again, John Grant said, something about the game changed and our attendance went down because you couldn't hear the thump, 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 thump of the floor.
Yes.
And the running and the ball and all the rest of that, because the carpet made it very smooth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. The best place I ever played lacrosse was in New Westminster on the wooden boards.
Mm-hmm.
Far and away. I mean, the excitement you got from that, the noise you got from that, I don't think people appreciated. I spent my entire life playing on terrazzo concrete floors around Ontario,
mm-hmm.
and like thinking laying on those floors cold and doing warm-up exercises, like, not the sharpest, way to go about warming up for a game. But, it really was, it was a softening of the game that was in contrast to a tough game.
Right.
And so, it didn't, even though the color, I think it was fitting for TV. I just don't think it was fitting for the game.
Right.
Let me ask you about the wooden floor. And I'm sorry for interrupting, but let me ask you about the wooden floor. Was it a healthier way to play for your knees? Was it different?
Totally. So first of all, I have a piece of the wooden floor at home. My brother brought me, when they tore the original floor up, my brother brought me a have a piece of the wooden floor at home. And it would be no different than, running on a gym floor, Frank, is much easier on your knees than running on concrete. And when you put boards down, you don't put them directly on the floor. You have boards underneath, so you have board on a board, if you will. And
there's some spring. There's some
spring and some bounce. Exactly. And it's in that I think is not only easier on you, but has more noise, and has more to add to the arena atmosphere.
You know what? I can, like I said, I haven't played, but I can also see another benefit. I assume, it's an assumption here, that it literally adds spring to your step.
Yes. I never thought of it that way. It seemed like just as hard getting from one end to the other, but I'm sure you're right.
Well, I'm not sure I'm right, so we'll take your word for it. You're the expert. But I could see that because there's that little bit of trampoline effect, right? Where you don't have as much resistance, right? You create energy and benefit from that energy. It's sort of a physics thing.
Yes.
Sorry, point. Didn't mean to turn the show into a science experiment.
That's all good. Now, the interesting thing is that the league, it comes to an end, partially because of the Montreal Olympics and partially financial again. And it's a shame because you really never got back into lacrosse at that point. You got into teaching. You, of course, were a coach there, coaching rugby and coaching, I'm assuming football and a few other things in basketball.
Yeah.
And really never got back into lacrosse. But you laid down such a mark in the years that you were there, that you've been inducted into the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame, the Ontario Lacrosse Hall of Fame, and the Oshawa Sports Hall of Fame. Now, a number of people that I've talked to, Michelle Boyer included, talked more about their hometown Hall of Fames as an importance to them than even like the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame. Is that the same with you?
I hate to own up to that almost, because it's too easy to fall into, because that's where all your friends are. Like, remember, I went to New Westminster. I didn't have a friend in the house. I had all these New Westminster Salmon Bellies who we beat 7 years in a row, thinking here's another Gale got in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame. Not a friendly environment. And so it's when you go to your local city, all your buddies show up, all your golf friends show up, all your basketball buddies show up. It's a party time, and so it is that, and I would say that, it's more surroundings, but it's pretty impressive, to be in the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame. When you see the people that are there, it's not that the Oshawa Sports Hall of Fame is any different. It's a collaboration of a large number of hockey players and people that have done exceptional things in other sports. So it's kind of a different, Hall of Fame. Although, like the recognition of it is still, I'm pretty proud of that. But man, I played a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'll tell you, without being on a line with Chuck Lee or out being on a line with Gaylord Paulus, Larry Lloyd is not Larry Lloyd.
Right. Is that what you think about when you're being inducted?
Yes.
What's the first thought when they told you you'd be inducted?
The first thought is that's a very selfish motive for a team.
Okay, let's try your second thought. No, just kidding.
No, it is like it's. I think the word I'd like to use, and I did use this. It's embarrassing. It's
Right.
because, I am there representing so many other people, and I mean, in Gaylord's case, he was in all the Hall of Fames. I mean, it was just like, but what I'd learned playing with Gaylord, I couldn't, it was priceless. And I didn't get to where I was, he could give you the ball or get you the ball in any situation and make you look good.
Right.
I think you and I have some similarities in personality. Not that I played lacrosse, but I had an opportunity to benefit from a lot of publicity because I was a host of a TV show. Let's see if there's parallels here. I think there is. So I was the host of the TV show, and the Toronto Star sent a guy to put me in the TV guide, and they did an interview, and I kept telling them about all the other people that are involved in putting the program together. And then he kept going, no, Frank, I want to hear about you. It's hard. It's hard when you're part of a team to sit there and take credit as though it's all you. It's difficult. It really cuts into your personality and what you want, because once you've decided you're a team player, you can't let go of it. It's impossible.
No.
And every time people would pat me on the back, I go, "But hang on a second." And I almost I guess I didn't realize, but you're using a very, very good word there, where the selfishness, the embarrassment of being told that. Those are the feelings I had, so I can relate a little bit about that. So what do you do to compensate for that? When is it now you feel incumbent? It's incumbent upon you to make sure that you always. Is that why you're mentioning everybody else all the time? Is that how you make up for it?
I don't think so. In some ways, I guess I don't know, but I do know for a fact that when you build team, and what's available through a team is so much more than you could ever do individually. I mean, it's like, everything in life is dependent on who you're doing things with, and how, what you get to know and learn from that. So I mean, but it's their only way of doing it. They can't just keep inducting teams,
Right.
of which they do a good job. But I'm going to tell you, when they inducted in 2002, when they inducted the Green Gales as a team into the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame, and about 22 of us went west, I had a chance to speak on behalf of the team. And I'm going to tell you, there is nothing in my life that is stacked up to what I was able to transcribe to those people about who we were and what we were up to. Nothing. It was very emotional, and it was unbelievably, I think, exhilarating for me to be a spokesperson and try to put in words what happened.
And celebrate the team emotionally.
But if you could have measured my excitement of that versus the excitement of the other three events that you mentioned, not close.
Right.
I can see it, and I could see it in you. And I hate to generalize, but that's, I hate repeating this, but I'm going to anyway. It is part of that formula that makes lacrosse what it is, and what makes people gravitate to it. And once they've gravitated to it, they're impacted by all those things that make up lacrosse in people's hearts and minds. And I appreciate your sincerity, by the way. I mean, it can't be easy. It can't be easy to deal with people patting you on the back when you're already uncomfortable the last time you got patted on the back.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you.
Now, another part of this that I wanted to touch on was, of course, we talked about you coaching and going and teaching. Was it as you were doing that, you got into real estate? And that was through Carm Collins, your former teammate in Philadelphia, playing, which just shows you it all goes full circle anyways.
Yeah. So Karen was a roommate. So we have a special relationship. I mean, and so Karen, he's from Peterborough. All he's done is try to beat me up all my life, and so I get to play with him. And I find the real Carm, and he was, by the way, just an exceptional captain. Just an exceptional captain. He kind of epitomizes. I remember, it was under the captaincy of Jim Higgs, who was absolutely of the same caliber. Unselfish, do anything, anytime to make it better. And so I got to hang out with Carm, and I mean, Carm, worked in a factory and got into real estate and did really well by it. And I'm doing what I absolutely love to do in life, which is teach. I'm a teacher. And it's like, and I'm a phys ed teacher. I get to play all day with kids, and watch them grow and, be more than they ever think they could be. And so Carm kind of sees some of what you guys have got a glimpse of here, today. And he says, man, you should do real estate.
Yeah.
I said, Carm, I love teaching, man. I said, I think I could make maybe a few extra bucks in real estate. But anyway, so long story short, I said, I get into real estate under the guise that I'm going to invest in real estate, and this is a good way to invest, that I should be on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. So I start doing real estate, and it starts to fall into place like Carm had fantasized about,
Yeah, you're selling yourself short, though. There's a lot of due diligence there. Your original story about building your base is something that just absolutely blew my mind, that you would take the time to go through a phone book manually. Yeah, write down everybody you knew to call them and tell them you're doing this.
So Gary, I mean, you don't think that what I learned in sports had any translation to how I might run a real estate business? I mean, it's life.
Yeah.
I mean, if people don't say like I'm gonna tell people I'm in real estate. I open up the phone book, and I go through the phone book and say, how many letters you send out? How many letters do you think I sent out? Oh, 50, 80, 100, 120. No, I sent 1,100 letters. If you knew me and I knew you and I knew that you knew me, you were getting a letter. So it was like starting at 10x. Like you're really deciding that you're going to, do it more than you thought you were going to do it. The first summer I was in real estate, I made almost twice as much money as I made the entire year teaching in 2 months.
Wow.
It was like, man, I can do this. I can do this and teach. I'm not going to leave teaching. I had a great basketball team I was coaching, and I was loving that.
But you had a discipline from playing to be able to put that forth to what you were doing, because you would go into the office before you went to teach. And you would go in there after you finished teaching and do whatever you had to do because you had the discipline.
Right. And do you think I was born with that discipline?
No. I think that
I learned. It was learned, and it was like and so it was that, like, carrying the brick in my stick. That determination. Do you think I was born with it? No.
Right.
But once I got it, I had it.
Right.
And you think that doing those repetitive drills day in, day out, I was born with? No, I saw the evolution of what happens if you do it day in, day out. That's how you do real estate, day in, day out, all the little things.
Right. And not waiting, because you never waited for cards or signs or things like that. You were bang.
Action. You're into action. Yeah, right. It's like, were you going to make a mistake? Probably, but you were in action. You were going to make it happen. And, I just knew no other way of operating, because of, how I'd been taught to operate at the optimum level.
Right. Yeah. Now, I want to get into a bit of, just before we end, because I think time is flying on us here. Amazing how quickly this goes. The lacrosse is finally getting back into the Olympics. and we're going in a form of sixes. What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, anything that lacrosse, is able to get exposed to is amazing. I mean, we can talk about what's better, what's not as good. Man, lacrosse is lacrosse. You still got a stick and a ball and a net and a goalie and, 5 players. And I mean, it can get pretty exciting.
Right.
When it's played and watched by people that have never watched it before. They might want to say, where's the ball? But something, it is the intensity of the game, when it's kind of put on display. I think it's phenomenal. You think when I'm watching breakdancing at the last Olympics, I'm not thinking lacrosse is going to do good. I'm thinking lacrosse is going to do good.
Absolutely.
So it's like, everything's relative. And, whether people see lacrosse as us 3 here on the screen do today, it doesn't matter. You can see when people are giving it their all and competing, you can sense the excitement of that. And seeing it live, being in the arena and watching it, is even more so, an opportunity to feel that. Like, I can't tell you, at no other time have I ever felt the energy in a rink as I did when the Flyers were playing that, and Kate Smith singing the national anthem. You could feel it. Mm-hmm. You don't get that opportunity to feel that energy as a fan too often. But the energy that was there was so palatable, you could touch it.
Right.
And I think lacrosse has that opportunity. When we're in New Westminster playing in those playoffs against the best players the West had, Luthwaite and Goss and the greatest players of in time, and you could feel it. You could touch it. If you've ever been into Hastings playing on a Saturday night right next to the Legion and the rink was alive,
right?
You can feel that. It doesn't happen in too many places.
Right.
It doesn't happen at Maple Leaf Gardens too much.
No. It may have, but it doesn't.
It may have, exactly.
Well, the other thing is also to get 280 more countries to view it. Might yes. Actually get it off the charts yes. there, because it's been the greatest secret known to mankind for so many years. Now yes. that with TSN and ESPN, we finally got it out there a bit. This is the telltale. They've got 3 years to get yes. the T's crossed, the I's dotted, because first impressions are lasting ones.
Yes. So that's a good point we said about ESPN, because I mean, we tried so hard to get that, that TV opportunity in that first pro league. And I mean, I see exactly why nobody's buying it. It's unknown. They're not risking, and so that media is ultra important.
Absolutely. I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule there, and out of probably missing a round of golf to take time with us and talk about yesteryear and all the things about it. And like I told you off the air, my MO has always been to get the stories. Anybody can look up stats, but to get the stories and the eras out there on tape that people can view this forever. That's my goal in this. And I appreciate you taking the time to do it with us.
And thank you for having me on with many of the other great disciples you've had on for lacrosse here over the years. And it's great to be one of them.
Absolutely. Frank?
I have to say thank you to being on as well. And I look forward to learning more about lacrosse and its history. And I know our viewers enjoy listening to people like yourself. And most of all, sharing the passion that you have for the game. It's clear, and there's no question about it. Thank you for doing this, Larry.
You're welcome. Experiences is where it's at, and this was an experience.
Well, for Gary Groob and Larry Lloyd's Gale Force Conversation, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk, seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Lacrosse Talk news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. And don't forget Candid Frank Stanisci, 10:30 on YouTube, where you can check out all our Candid Frank live programs. Proud of the NLL part of it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time.